And hello and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I am your host, Coach Helix, and with me, I'm happy, delighted to bring my wonderful co-host.
Stephen, the
That
medium is
that's
here.
your cue, Steven.
I think I was waiting for just more, just more fancy title, more fancy introduction.
Like wonderful, delightful, handsome, smart. I'm running out of ways to describe you. But anyways, I said I'm really happy and delighted to be here because last week we talked about your very, 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 very scary near death experience. So first and foremost, I know people want to know how you're doing. So why don't you tell people how you're doing?
Well, you know what, Elix, as I say to people, that there's nothing to complain about because I'm here, and I'm physically, I'm not hurt. Physically, I'm still here because it was such a traumatic event that happened just over a week ago. I can't believe it's already been over a week. It's crazy. Mentally, it's been rough. Sleeping has not been the best at all. So, but I think I'm getting there. Each day that goes by, I get better and better. And I think it's because I'm a sleeper. And when you are a sleeper, meaning that when I hit the bed, within 2 minutes, as you can probably attest, Helix, I'm sleeping and I don't wake up for anything. I don't wake up to go to the bathroom. I don't wake up to do anything except the next morning at 6 o'clock or whatever time I'm getting up at. And for that to be altered is very weird and very difficult and frustrating for me. So,
And when you say you sleep, no matter what, he definitely means it. I mean, there's been times where Steven takes a nap, after dinner, and sleeps until like 9:30, gets up, sometimes even 10 o'clock, gets up, brushes his teeth, and back to bed. And within seconds he's done over, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like when I do that, I need time to like get my in my groove and get my sleep back. Oh, not Steven. You really are definitely a sleeper. But for those of you who are listening perhaps for the first time, last week Steven was at his office, and he is on a second level, and he has a private entrance with a deck, and he happened to be on the deck when the deck collapsed. And even though it's a second level, it's about 20 feet distance to the ground because there's like a basement level underneath the deck. And he's very lucky that he was able to leap back into the building as the deck separated from the entire building, and he's very lucky to be alive. So it's been, to say, a pretty traumatic experience it's really an understatement. And that's been I mean, for both of us, because I was an hour away when he called me, and I had no idea whether he was dead, alive, good, whatever. And it was really, really difficult to overcome that. But having said that, we are filled with gratitude every day. And honestly, Stephen, I'm this is the very first time, and I've gone through other traumatic events in my life, but watching you and having you experience what you've been experiencing, in watching you not sleep, I can really feel for really the first time perhaps that post traumatic stress is real. It's really real, and it affects everything. It affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, and I think we could go on and on and on, but it's real. So I'm really glad that you're here, Stephen.
yeah, you know what, Elix, when something like that happens, it's just, you can't, it's very difficult to not rerun it in your mind because it's like you go through the process of trying to like really figure out that it actually happened, and you can't help, or at least I can't help, just envisioning what would have happened if I didn't make that leap back into the doorway. And I think it's because after it happened and I heard the crash, that noise I hear every day still, I turn and look and saw how far out the platform fell because the staircase, that the whole thing detached. and where the platform was, I mean, it was far out. So
Yeah.
that just would have been the motion I was heading towards. And when I hit the ground, I would have kept going. And if I didn't make the doorway and fell straight down, then there's the cement staircase that's even further down. So no matter what, I'm grateful, 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 and it's just a nice perspective to know that, God, angels, my loved ones, and spirit know that I'm supposed to be here. My work's not done. So
For sure. And they also know you are very mischievous here on earth, and
I
they're
am.
like they're not ready for that in spirit yet. So you do not have permission to go over with them. They're not accepting you just yet. So, we got a whole lot of Stephen here. But one thing I do want to say though is, when you experience these moments like this, a lot of people really step up, and I am really grateful, Stephen. We have, an incredible network of friends, customers, clients who have all been checking in and really concerned. And I know your clients are your friends checking with you, but I have a whole lot of my own clients. They all know what happened, and they're all checking in. They're all thinking of you. They're all sending you all kinds of prayers and positive vibes. And I am forever, forever grateful to so many people, and for the generosity that, some people have. Just simply, I'm just blown away by, you know, people who are just generous simply because they want to be. They're not expecting anything in return. And when what they give you, that they're giving you, from it comes from a very authentic and place, and a genuine place. So it's
Yeah,
really
it does.
warm to experience that, right?
Well, on my end, my contacts and friends, and also on your end, it also just is such an incredible feeling to hear your clients and friends just continuously ask about me. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. We have an amazing network. And again, it goes back to being so grateful and being so present to gratitude and to all the wonderful gifts that we just have the that we have, that we're so privileged. I mean, that's I'm just trying to look for the right word, and I think that's the only one that comes to mind is the privilege that we have to be alive and to have this wonderful gift here on earth. But having said that, Stephen, I also know that you've been very, very busy with what's going on. Tell people, if anyone's listening for the first time, tell them what you do, who you are, and what's coming up, because you got some pretty awesome things coming up.
Well, I am a gourmet chef, and I go
No,
around the
that
country.
that no, that you are definitely not a chef. You don't cook. Period. Never mind a gourmet chef, please. The
Well, I'm
fancy thing
funny. I
you
guess
make
I'm
is,
funny.
yeah. Well,
I'm
you are
funny.
funny. The fanciest thing you make is probably scrambled eggs. I think. I
Oh,
don't think. What is there
hey, listen,
anything
I've baked.
fancier?
I have baked. I've baked cookies. I've baked brownies. So just saying.
Okay.
Just saying. But yes, everything. I started teaching my class 2 weeks ago, and the great thing about this class is this: it's the second part of a class I've already taught, and because the majority of the first class signed up for the second class, I never even advertised it, which is just crazy. Excuse me, crazy. But it is. I mean, the students, the participants are amazing, so gifted and so connected to spirit. So it's a mediumship class, and I love doing it, and I love and look forward to Wednesday nights. And I am just today going to put up a lot of stuff that is happening. It's finally done. My computer guy, who I love, just got everything completed, put it on my website, put the banners together. So I'm going to send them. So there's a fundraiser coming up November 6th in Taunton, which I cannot wait to do. This is all on my website. Just go to stephenthemedium.com. October 31st, I'm doing an event in P-Town at Water's Edge Cinema, which is going to be another fabulous event. Then I'm going to do readings. And then after I finish, a Halloween flick is going to play, which is amazing. And I have 2 events, virtual events that are limited to 8 people. And every person gets a reading. So you can take a look at the dates and sign up. And the great thing about the virtual events is you don't have to leave your house. You can come by yourself. You can come with a friend via Zoom. It's terrific. And then you and I have something in the works, which is a huge that we're working on, right?
That's right. And for that, you should go into Stephen the Medium YouTube channel and look for Steelix the series. And it's funny. And you'll get to have a little taste as to what we've done so far, but what's coming up is totally different. And I think you guys are going to love it. So there's plenty happening. And Stephen, before I go into today's show, I also we're heading to Provincetown for the weekend. So I do want to give a shout out to our friends Steve and Brandon from A Dyer Hotel because they're actually hosting us, and they have been super generous. Steve was a guest in one of our previous show when we were celebrating. Pride Month, and you and I. This doesn't come at a better time. I don't even think Steve knows what's happened, but their gift doesn't come at a better time than this time. So shout out to these wonderful people. If you ever find yourself in Provincetown, you got to check out A Dyer Hotel because it is absolutely fabulous.
It's not only fabulous, but the fact that you get to deal with these two guys, that really is the fabulous part. I mean, the hotel is fabulous, but they're the greatest guys. So
greatest, to the max. We give them the golden bosser. That golden bosser is coming back once again, Stephen, today for Stephen Brandon. So
yes.
Anyway, Stephen, so let's talk about today's show. Today's show, I actually have a guest I never met, and her name is Diana Bacon, and I'm excited to really listen to what Diana has to say. Today's show is about meeting literacy, communicate with clarity, confidence, and credibility. And Diana has a multidisciplinary expertise in business, good governance, and parliamentary law. Diana provides value added services and training to clients, and through the process of optimizing governance, she helps leaders get rid of those pesky pain points and communicate with clarity, confidence, and credibility. But here's the deal. I believe that today's conversation is valuable for everyone, whether you're a parent who served on their PTO, to understand your local community government, like the Board of Education, commissioners, city council, to anyone who serves on any kind of a board or is a member of an association. Today's conversation, I believe it's going to be fascinating. So stay tuned. So let's do this. I think it's time to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk to Diana Bacon, and we're going to understand why this subject is important for all of us. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my wonderful co host,
Stephen Frederick is here.
Stephen the Medium, who is my husband, an attorney, and a medium. How wonderful is that? And today, we are having a wonderful conversation with guest Diane Bacon about meeting literacy, communicate with clarity, confidence, and credibility. And like I said before, whether you serve on a board, are a member of an organization, or are involved in your local community, it is important to understand the importance of good governance and how you can gain clarity, confidence, and credibility through education. Diana is on a mission to help you just do just that because she recognizes the good governance leads to better decisions, better relationships, and better organization, communities, and governments. I'm excited to welcome. Hello, Diana. Welcome to our show.
Hi, Elix and Stephen. Thank you for inviting me.
We are super excited to learn a little bit about what you do, and let me start with this, Diana. You and I have never met, but I will tell you, I know you spoke to Vicky, and Vicky said to me, I was so fascinated speaking to Diana, and you will be as well. So I'm excited to have you speak to our listeners about what the subject that clearly you're very passionate about. So let's start with this. Clearly, like I said, good governance is a passion of yours. Why do you feel that is so important, and why do you think it is a valuable subject for our listeners?
Yes, in many ways, I've had this passion from a young age. I watched my parents in their community involvement. I was a student delegate at a National Farmers Union conference, and it was at college where my passion grew, even though I wasn't aware it was at the time. But I was elected to the student council at a regional college as there was a housing shortage in the community for students, and there was no college student residence. I initiated and led a process to obtain which was a significant government grant to build a student residence. And at that time, I didn't use the term governance. I hadn't heard
Mm.
about the word governance. I just did it. So, so I think that's important to know. It's just you don't have to use the word governance, but you need to understand what it means so that you can participate, whether it's in your community, your organization, that type of thing. So, and as a parent, I attended parent council meetings, and that exposure also helped me to understand some of the processes and procedures. And as a citizen, I attended council meetings that were open to the public. It was not until I was in my MBA program with a concentration in community economic development where I learned and studied, and I actually wrote a thesis on good governance. It's been quite the journey since that time, helping others to get more involved in promoting good governance practices. I,
And,
I
and,
believe it's important to learn good governance because it's empowering. The more I knew, the more I felt I could participate. I could raise my hand, ask a question, get on the speaker list at a council meeting, and feel confident enough to make my voice heard. If everyone can understand what governance is and what good governance looks like, then we're
and,
able to recognize when it's absent and perhaps mitigate the risk of any negative impact on an organization or the people in the community.
and
Um,
Diana, there's a lot of our listeners are we have a diverse group of listeners. People who may
mhm.
be stay-at-home moms, or they're very active in their children's school PTO. How for those individuals, and we have all kinds of leaders who also listen to our program. But for those individuals who may not be familiar with the term governance, how would you define it? And you said it's important that we know what it is, but it's also important to know what good governance is. So, how would you help define that, perhaps for somebody who may be listening and may saying, I'm part of this committee. I want to know more about this. How would you define that for them?
Well, the very simple definition is how decisions are made and who is involved in making those decisions. As citizens, we all have a right to have our voices heard. No one should be excluded. But sometimes we sense that, well, we don't know how to say something. We don't know how to speak up. We don't know if we have the right to speak up. Because sometimes going to a council meeting can be rather intimidating.
Yes.
The first steps I always say is ask for the rules that govern, whether it's bylaws or acts and regulations, and the procedural rules. Like in a council meeting, there's usually procedural rules for meetings. And just having an idea about who's in the room, how did they get there, what is their role, it helps to better understand the actors in the theater before you walk in. I encourage reading as much as you can online for council meetings. The minutes are usually posted, which is helpful to just scan through and see what decisions are made. Usually council minutes are pretty sparse. It's just the motion and whether it was adopted or not. But if you attend a meeting, you might hear the reports that provide the background that go into making the decisions. So sometimes we want to know why they made that decision. So by attending the meetings or asking for the background information. Another thing is attend those meetings. And then when you go back home, read a little bit more to gain more understanding. So it's just a kind of a read, attend meetings, repeat. And
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'd also say buy a copy of Parliamentary Procedure, an authorized book such as Robert's Rules of Order in brief, to familiarize yourself with meeting motions. That can also be very empowering. And the Robert's Rules of Order in brief is available on Amazon. And you can get it as a Kindle version, I believe, as well as a print. And that's very useful. A lot of people I know have taken that book, and if they wanted to amend a motion, they felt comfortable on how to do it.
And by the way, my co-host and my husband happens to be an attorney, and he has a question for you. So, Stephen, go ahead.
Diana, hi. Well, you know what? I think
Hi.
it's really just more of a comment that I think this is so important what you're doing in reference to where we are now in this world. And one of the things that I love what you just said is that, through my career and working in different jobs, I remember being at a board meeting when I was, in a legal capacity in a mutual fund company, as well as something more simple in a spiritual church that they were doing. I think they were doing elections. And the greatest thing I love that you're giving people that are listening is just getting that little bit of information and understanding whether it's bylaws or rules or regulations, because you can see, or I've seen, that when people just even have that little bit of knowledge of how things work, the confidence and the understanding and more apt to raise their hand and want to participate is just present. So right now, what you're doing, I think, is just, I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, so thank you very much, Stephen.
So
I believe the dissemination of information is critical to access, but as citizens, we also need to know, or members in an organization, we also need to know where that information is available, because we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely. Listen, I want to make sure that we repeat. What's the name of the book? I wrote Robert's Rules of Ordering. Can you repeat the name again?
Robert's Rules of Order in brief.
It's actually
Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised in brief.
Okay, and beautiful.
And the third edition was published in September of 2020. It's always
Okay.
best to have the most current edition.
Beautiful.
But that's
Beautiful.
a great starting point, because the official parliamentary authority is Robert's Rules of Order, the 12th edition, and it's much more intense and in depth. But it's very good as a resource, a reference, because you can go to a meeting, and if it's something that's a motion that you hadn't heard of before, that's the book you want to go to, the bigger book, because it has almost every situation that could ever happen at a meeting.
Yeah. Listen,
And
yeah, go ahead.
oh, it just, when I used to attend meetings, then I would come home and I would open the book and better understand what took place. Or someone made a point of order at a meeting, and the chair said that that was not in order. And I'm like, why is a point of order not in order? Then in the book it explained that it has to be timely. It can't be after a couple other business items have been discussed.
Yeah. And I'm happy. I mean, I'm super lucky that I have Steven, and he's the one that keeps me in check. But we've had, in previous shows, we've talked about the importance of claiming your seat at the table. And what I
Mm-hmm.
hear you say is this is how you get informed to get to claim that seat at the table. Because listen, I mean, our world is changing. There's a whole lot going on, and we could either sit on the sidelines and be a bystander and be pissed off that things are, being done and we don't have a say about it, or we could claim a driver's seat, show up at these meetings, and claim our seat at the table.
Well,
But yeah, but go ahead.
hmm when we know the responsibilities of the leaders, we are then able to hold them accountable. But that transparency needs to be there. That information needs to be there. And if you can't find it, ask for it. Um, because if it's a public organization, there's public meetings, you have a right to information.
And that's key. If it's public, we have the right to ask for the information. Diana, we need to take a break, but I have plenty more questions we want to keep talking to you about and learning more about this subject. So if you are, please hang on in there and we'll be right back.
Awesome.
My life, my life. And hello, everyone, and welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix. With me, my wonderful co host,
Steven's here.
Stephen the Medium, who happens to be an attorney, my husband, and a medium. And we are happy to have a special guest, Diana Bacon, who is a new guest and a new friend. And we're talking about meeting literacy, how to communicate with clarity, confidence, and credibility. And Diana happens to be an expert in the subject matter. So, Diana, question for you. So, we encourage people to get involved in their local community. As we think about voting for our local board of education or our county or city officials, how important is education and experience in voting for these individuals? And in other words, what is the importance of the education and experience when it comes to gaining clarity, confidence, and credibility for leaders?
That's always a good question to ask. Um, ask ourselves, how can I get involved? Um,
Mm,
or do I want to get involved? Do I want to have a voice? Are we voting to just vote, or are we paying attention to what the, what's going on in the community? I think it's important to again find out as much information as you can, do a little research, and just develop a practice of attending meetings, listening to the different um, candidates, learn about their platforms. The candidates tend to go to political forums. I was a moderator for a few provincial um, forums where um, provincial candidates got up and spoke to a large audience, and I moderated that. And they all had a chance to speak. And I think as citizens, we need to attend these forums, listen to these different candidates, and that could be one step for sure to pay attention to what they are saying, because what they're saying might represent their values. And are your values aligning with their values?
mm. That brings me. We talk a lot about core values. We talk a lot about purpose. You know, what when it comes to boundaries for purpose, what are the types of boundaries that should be observed um, in 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 these types of meetings in organizations, um, and are there boundaries for purpose in personal lives as well? In your opinion?
Well, we all have boundaries. 'Cause setting boundaries is healthy, and as I said, we all have rules in our lives. Rules we give ourselves, our children in sports and card games. As individuals, we have our personal boundaries, and the rules are put in place for fairness and for our protection as well. There are, of course, consequences if we push the boundaries or break the rules. Rules in organizations are meant for the orderly operation and conduct of business. That's why an organization has a hierarchy of rules, because it's a
Mm,
little bit more complicated than just maybe in your personal life, but it does have an impact. All organizations to which we may belong or are in our community providing services impact us personally. So the highest rule is rule of law, legislation. Then the organization's article of incorporation or similar. Then there's the bylaws. Then there's special rules of order that the organization may adopt, and the parliamentary authority. And then there's administrative rules and custom. But the higher ranking rules outrank the lower rules. So it's important to know in an organization you might be attending and they say, well, this is the way we've always done it.
mm,
So
yes.
sometimes there's a risk in just accepting what somebody says But in my experience, when I've worked with organizations and they say that's the way they've always done it, for example, an election by acclamation, well, that's the way we've always done it. If there's only one candidate running, that candidate is elected by acclamation. Well, the bylaws, which is the organization's own rules, say that election must be by ballot. It doesn't provide the exception for a single candidate. So therefore, the organization is not following their bylaws. And if someone was to challenge that election could be null and void. Mm. So it's important to know what the boundaries are in the environment you're in. And that means looking at the rules in an organization. It means looking at the rules. Yeah.
And it's up to us to be responsible for being intentional, being an active participant in that process. Now, Diana, when we, say, for example, somebody who attends a parent-teacher organization meeting or a board of commissioners meeting, what should they be looking for as evidence of what you call good governance?
Well, let's start with parent councils. I think, again, it's important to attend a meeting, ask for some documents, join the parent council. That's a great opportunity to get right in there and really understand and ask for the rules that are governing the parent council and how they advocate for students, and then take it one step further and attend the in my area, there's an association of student councils for the whole province. And people will attend that. And parents, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be on a student council or a parent council. You can actually attend just as a parent from your school with children in that school. And you get a sense of how things are done, what is done at that meeting. Obtain access to the bylaws. What's the purpose of the organization? What are the rules around that organization? And what are the possibilities of the changes that you can make on behalf of or in the best interest of not only your child but the other children in your school? So I think that's very empowering, is just attending and learning the process, because it's very hard. Very few people feel comfortable to just, without any swimming lessons, just dive into the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
So learning a little bit as you go along gives you that confidence to participate.
Stephen, you have a question. Go ahead.
I think this is not an easy, well, maybe for me, I know it's not going to be an easy question to answer, but for someone who may just walk up to you and say, Diana, I want, like, I'd like to be involved. I'd like to be more involved, but it's overwhelming, or what's the point? What I'm doing is not going to make a difference. I don't have that power. I'm just me. What would be, Diana, the advice or maybe feedback you would give somebody who has that motivation but is sort of stopped by thinking, it's going to be too much. I'm not going to understand it. It's legal mumbo jumbo. I don't understand it, and I'm not going to be able to do. And I'm not going to be able to move the needle by myself.
Good question. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can identify with that. Mm-hmm. My advice would be just take one step in. Take it slow. It doesn't happen overnight. But in a year from now, You'll be amazed at what you've learned and how much your confidence has increased. And the biggest thing to remember is when you do get involved with a group, you're no longer acting as a single person. Together, you can create the extraordinary. And I think that's why we join groups, so that together we create a bigger voice to be heard. And we can have, as an individual, we can have a considerable influence. You can ask questions that might be a catalyst for something new, or it might be the stepping stone with other people having other ideas. And it's all about providing your ideas, but it's by attending those meetings that those ideas might come to you by listening to the other conversations. Groups come together because there's a need, there's a cause, and they want to make a difference in their communities. One person finds it difficult, but as a group, it's much easier.
Well, I'll tell you, Diana, if I did ask you that question and heard your response, that would move the needle for me. It was a great response. Thank you.
Yeah, you know what, Stephen? That listening to you, Diana, it brings me back to this personal experience that we're dealing with a situation with my mom and this organization, government organization in Puerto Rico, and that what you explain is exactly what happened. This is what we do. Why? Because this is what we do. And it took, well, thankfully for Stephen, who, has training in challenging people, but we had to challenge that. We had to challenge that status quo. We had to ask for the bylaws. We had to ask for, tell me where that comes from. Now, we still haven't really moved the needle because we're working with an organization that is very bureaucratic, very red tape, and lots of corruption. But I think what I'm hearing from you is that we're claiming our seat by asking the question, by persisting, by challenging that status quo. And yes, it's not easy. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but that's the choice. We either, like I said before, we become bystanders and do nothing, or we take a stand, even if we have to fall for it. You get what I'm saying?
Definitely. It's easy to sit back and wait for somebody else to make the changes. But in 5 years from now, will we regret that decision and say, I probably could have done something? We need to feel good about our actions as well. And if we feel like we can move that needle just a little bit, we're not only helping ourselves, but we're helping others that face the same situation. So that's how legislation's changed. That's we need to advocate for change, and sometimes it's a few people. Sometimes you get a petition going so that you show that there's many people behind you.
But we are the change. Diana, we do have to take a break, another commercial break, but hang in there because I do want to ask you about your Meeting Literacy Academy, and I want to learn more about that and have our listeners get some resources from you. So we will be right back.
Awesome.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex. With me, my wonderful co-host,
Stephen Frederick is here.
Stephen Frederick, and we're having a wonderful conversation with our guest Diane Bacon. We're talking about meeting literacy, communicating with clarity, confidence, and credibility. Diana, I want you to have an opportunity to tell our listeners about your Meeting Literacy Academy, who can enroll in these courses, and what is the expected benefit, or what are the expected benefits after completion of the training.
Oh, thank you, Elix. My Meeting Literacy Academy is just I developed that because while over the last couple of years, it was more difficult to provide board training in person. So I moved some of the training online so far, and so that now there's two options, online or in person. Now, the benefit to accessing the training for the individual learner as well is I think it's a long time coming. I used to get a lot of requests for this, so finally I'm doing it, and an individual learner now can take courses rather than rely on the whole board to take the training. Over the past 2 years, I've provided the courses and programs online, live online, and now with some basic courses I've been working on, I'm transitioning those to the Meeting Literacy Academy. Some will be on demand, and some will be where there's interaction with me having a webinar or a Zoom call. Now, some of the benefits, I don't like to talk about some of the benefits. I like to let my clients, my participants, I put a lot of testimonials on my website. I'll read one, if I may, just really quick, just to kind of give the idea.
Yes.
Oh, okay. One of my clients wrote, thanks to a parliamentary procedure training session, Diana did the board, thanks to the parliamentary training session Diana did with the board 2 years ago, our meetings run smoothly and efficiently. Because of that, we are more proficient, which has led to our establishing goals and carrying them out effectively. Often when people volunteer to be on a board, they have no understanding of how meetings should be conducted. The workshop was extremely informative, and Diana has the ability to make a difficult subject matter interesting and understandable. As president, it has given me greater confidence when chairing a meeting. The board members feel more confident and as a result are more prepared to speak up. That was a nice testimonial one of my clients brought.
That's
That was
absolutely
wonderful.
And Diana, how our listeners could get a hold of you? What's your website, and how can they connect with you on social media if you are on social media?
Well, one thing is to go to the Meeting Literacy Academy. I wanted to offer a free course called The 6 Steps of Handling a Main Motion. It provides the foundational knowledge to handling a main motion on which secondary motions may be then applied. And I think it's very helpful to just start with those 6 essential steps. Now, to get a hold of me, contact me through the Governance Optimizer, governanceoptimizer.com.
So
and you can find me there.
Optimizer.com, and the Meeting Literacy Academy, will they find it under the governanceoptimizer.com?
Yes, you will.
Beautiful. So there you have it, guys. Governanceoptimizer.com. If you want to learn or enroll in the Meeting Literacy, you can do that while you're on that website and connect with our wonderful guest, Diane Bacon. And Diane, to close our segment for today, because we are at the top of the hour, what would what would be one or two things that our listeners could start doing right now to get involved and to establish better meeting literacy, that is?
Thank you. It's important to know that governance is how we organize ourselves. To make the decisions necessary, it sets out who has a voice in making decisions and the procedures used to make the decisions and who is held accountable. So the media literacy can help with that. There are ways to promote transparency in your communities and in your organizations. Read the bylaws and the rules of the organization for which you belong, for example. Be aware of what's going on. Hold yourself and others accountable. Learn the rights of all to participate and engage in the democratic process of decision making. And learn the basics of motions so that you will have the confidence to speak up and know when to speak up. For example, if there's a breach of procedural rules, as I pointed out, a point of order must be timely. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my God, Diana, thank you so much
you,
for
Diana.
this very, very informative session. And I hope for our listeners, it was as informative for you guys as it was for both Stephen and I. Diane, thank you. And you have an open invitation to come back to our show anytime. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking at your faces I've got a picture on my computer so that I'm able to look at you when I'm speaking.
Listen, we're not just pretty faces. We got smarts behind the pretty faces. Just saying, saying that. Just saying, Diana.
I'd love to. Yeah, call me anytime if you have any questions.
Thank you, Diana.
Thanks, Diana.
And this
Awesome.
we are at the top of the hour. So, Stephen, this was pretty awesome show today.
It really was, Elix, and it was necessary. Also, I just, it's like talking to an encyclopedia with Diana. She knows so much, but what the great thing about Diana was that she was explaining it in a sort of like a lay person's terms, so that you could really get and understand what she was saying, and definitely motivating.
Yeah, motivating to claim your seat at the table, people.
Yes.
Do stop being bystanders, stop being victimized or victims of, situations. And we all have a voice, and we live in a democracy, and we all have the right to exercise our voice. So,
well, I'm going to go claim my seat down at the kitchen counter because I'm hungry.
All right. Moving along, Betty, moving along. Tell people where they can find you.
Stephen the Medium, and you must go. Do not stop for anything. Go right to stephenthemedium.com because I just put up 4 different events. So go.
Check out the events page, and there's plenty of opportunity to come and see us and meet us, because you know what? Whatever event he does, I'm there. So you get 2 for the price of 1.
You have no choice.
I have no choice. And for those of you who want to follow me, find me at Coach Elex anywhere on social media. And don't forget, watch our Steelex series. Go to YouTube, Stephen the Medium, and search for Steelex the series, and have fun watching our 4 episodes so far. And that's it, Stephen. Let's go. We have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you, Mark, for everything. Thank you, the team at WARA as well. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.